edition, Mr. Relevant, presented by Door County Distillery. Alex Strouf hanging out with you from the Gruberl offices. One call that's all studio at the Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. Joshy DiMaggio has returned after several days off. We will get to Joshy in just a moment. Producer Tiny Hands Hunter Vaughn back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week continues today. Wisconsin men's basketball head coach Greg Gard will join me later in the show to break down all things about this year's Badgers team. A ton of turnover in the transfer portal and losing Tyler Wall, who's out of eligibility this offseason. So the new look Badgers previewed by their head man entering his 10th year, 9th full season, but 10th year as the head coach, Greg Gard. So we will do that a bit later. The NFL trade deadline was yesterday. Certainly the biggest news topic yesterday was the NFL trade deadline on Tuesday, November 5th. Definitely nothing else going on in the world. So we'll talk trade deadline as the Packers do make a move at the deadline. Just not the move maybe some of us wanted. I shouldn't say expected, because I think we all kind of have come to know what to expect with the Green Bay Packers at the trade deadline. So we will talk about Preston Smith on his way to Pittsburgh in exchange for a 7th-round pick coming up. We will also play some one word on a Wednesday entering Week 10 in the NFL season. Joshy, where you been?
I'm a busy guy.
Okay, you were off Friday. You were off Monday.
Yep.
Where were you?
I had some duties around the house on Friday.
You had some duties around the house.
My girlfriend was at a meeting that ranged about 12 hours. So instead of paying a dog sitter or taking him to someone's house, I elected to use my vacation days. If I don't use, I will lose. And then on Monday, I went to an all-day golf outing on Sunday and knew I was going to be having some cocktails. And waking up at 4 a.m. like I have to, it wouldn't have worked out so hot.
So did you watch the Packers game on Sunday?
Yes. Yeah, it ended at probably 2:30.
Oh, okay.
But
I didn't know you were a golfer.
Yeah, oh yeah. Uh-huh. Sure have.
Since when?
About 17 to 20 years of my past life.
Oh, okay. How many times a year do you get out golfing?
Depends on the year.
So this year, let's use that as an example.
This year was probably my least in a long time, and it was probably like 10 times.
Oh, yeah, it's more than me. Okay. Did not know this about you. Now, I'm actually under the influence and guesstimation. I'm under the influence. I'm not under the influence. No. Was a little bit last night watching the news, but no, not this morning. I was under the impression you were avoiding me.
No, I would never do that.
Well, I don't think that's accurate, because
it depends on the day.
Well, you texted me last Wednesday, so a week ago today. You texted me and you said, "Hey, you were speaking blasphemy about me on Kyle Preston Norton weekdays 2 to 5. Here's what I had to say about Joshy a week ago. This is the first time I've seen him since. I've said this a week ago. Here's what I said on Kyle Preston Norton on ESPN Wisconsin.
So I try not to trash him, but he uses big words and sentences to try to. Joshy DiMaggio does this too, which is funny because they're more alike than they think.
I know.
They try mixing in big words that other people won't understand to sound smart.
Okay, so I was referring to Aaron Rodgers there, the quarterback of the New York Jets, because he used the word elixir to talk about water and cayenne pepper, which he now mixes together. And it clicked in my head at that very moment that you and Aaron Rodgers are very similar in that way, where you mix in big words just to sound smart to other people. Now, you know you do this, and you know Aaron Rodgers does this. So I don't think you can argue with my thought here.
I don't use big words to give off some sort of impression. The English language is vast. It has many words that, if used correctly, can better explain it than using a whole lot of words to mean the same thing. So if there is a word that fits the specifics of what I'm trying to communicate, I find it easy. Now, for me, I grew up in a household where this is very much the way my father talks. I didn't realize I talked funny until I started talking on the radio. It wasn't until then.
This is very much the way my father talks. Your father is an intellect, is what you're saying.
He might have a weird word fascination, but I'm not filing through my mind to find like bigger words to use.
Yes, you are.
No, it's just what pops into my head. It's just how it works.
Matriculation. What other big words do you like to use a lot?
I mean, there's plenty of them. And the thing is, there's two the two dummies in that audio clip that you heard, you and Ben Brust, the reason that is offensive to you guys is because you feel like we're trying to take shots at your intellect, which is not the case.
You sure about that?
Using a big word is not something I'm using to belittle you, to make you feel worse.
I didn't say belittle. You said belittle. You said belittle.
The impression and the way you framed that statement was these guys think they're better than us, so they use big words.
Let's listen to it again. Last week on Kyle Bruston-Nortman on Aaron Rodgers and Josh DiMaggio.
So I try not to trash him, but he uses big words and sentences to try to. Josh DiMaggio does this too, which is funny because they're more alike than they think.
I know.
They try mixing in big words that other people won't understand to sound smart.
I stand by that.
When you
I didn't say you try to make me feel dumb. I said you try to sound smart.
Yeah, but implicit in saying that, the other end of that is...
What'd you just say?
I mean, implicit is like a 7-letter word.
But you did say, well, by saying that you mean implicit by saying that.
Do you realize how many fewer words is implicit? Are you following along with me here? When I say implicit is versus the other end of saying they try and sound smart is I feel dumb when they do it.
Yeah.
You didn't say those words, but it can be implied that your reaction is that. Trust me, I'm not. What do you think I'm doing back here? Like going through a mental thesaurus?
Yes. That's exactly what I think. Yes.
So in the time that it took me to come up with implicit, you thought I was filing through other words?
Yeah, I do.
Well, then I give you a lot of credit for thinking my brain is rip-roaring that fast.
It is.
It's
You're
just
a smart
not.
fella. You're a smart fella.
I think both Aaron and I have things we're pretty smart in.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
I think
the nicest thing
Aaron-
you've ever said about him.
Yes. I mean, the guy's smart. He's I'd say more of like a football savant, but there's clearly some intelligence there. He might put it in the wrong things. He might believe some funny things. But he has common understanding that you would think most people who are smart have.
Okay.
But
No.
to say I'm like Aaron Rodgers and we're trying to pull a fast one I think it says more about you than it says about me.
Wow. So you went from saying, hey, I'm not calling you dumb, but then ended up landing on, you're just dumb.
No.
That's the understanding I got from the conversation you and I just had. And you're laughing because you know I'm right.
What I'm trying to communicate is you thinking it's offensive means that you're telling me you think you're dumb and that sometimes when I talk you feel dumb. That's what I gathered.
So the trade deadline was yesterday.
You didn't see that getting turned on you like that, did you?
No, I did. That's what you're really good at. You're a master of that. And that's why we needed to play that from a week ago. Because I thought you had been avoiding me. I thought I said something that hurt your feelings because I compared you to Aaron Rodgers.
You got to go a lot farther than that.
Well, I figured that might be all it takes with you, given your hatred on the record for the New York Jets quarterback.
Also, he used elixir.
That's not a big word. Now, you're right. You're right. Now, I knew the word elixir. Ben Brust didn't.
Of course not.
He called it an elixir, I believe. Because I had it written out for him.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Brust, when we've made him read things, he doesn't know, like, silent letters. Like, that's what we're working with.
Yeah,
here.
the best part about him, man, is we have this text line for our radio shows, and I guess we could use it here too. But we have the YouTube comments for Mr. Relevant. But we have a text line 800-990-3776 or 844-770-3776 that you can text into for all the ESPN Wisconsin shows. The thing about our guy Brust is he'll start reading things out loud and not realize what is being said. Or not realize what he's reading until he already reads it. So, anyway. All right. Somehow this got taken out on Brust, but here we are nonetheless. All right. So, I do want to get to the trade deadline as the Green Bay Packers don't make a move at the deadline. They do make a move. They just don't bring anybody in at the deadline. They trade Preston Smith, the edge rusher, has been with the Packers since 2019, to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 7th-round draft pick. Look, I don't hate this move. I also don't love this move. it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me, to be real honest with you, right? Because when we think of what the Packers' weakest positional group has been this year, it has, of course, been the pass rush, right? It's been their front four. They can't get pressure on quarterbacks. And I just don't view this as a necessary upgrade at the deadline when you were losing a starter, right? Your worst group didn't get better by losing Preston Smith yesterday. Now, did it get significantly worse? Of course, is the opposite side of that. And I also think the answer is probably not. You're going to have the opportunity to see some more of the young guns that Brian Gutekunst clamors for and loves. Right now, Packers only have one player over the age of 30 on the roster. That's Brandon McManus. So they got younger. You're going to see more Brenton Cox Jr. You're going to see more Kingsley Enagbare. You're going to see more Aaron Mosby on the edge. And, of course, more to Lucas Van Ness, the first-round pick from a year ago. But did you get better at the trade deadline? No. Did you get significantly worse? I think the answer is also no. Josh, you gave me quite a look when I was rattling through some of the depth pieces that we'll be seeing more of now. Why was that the look you
I was unsure if you were going to get to Aaron Mosby, seeing as he's played 7 NFL snaps to this point in his career.
And he has 1 sack, which he got last week against the Detroit Lions.
Much like everybody who comes off that left end, they need that guy to get tripped or not get out of his stance to get home.
Yeah. Hey, but give him credit regardless, right?
He's got a sack.
He's got half as many as Rashawn Gary.
Correct.
Woof. And by the way, the Joshy shot there, if you're not already in the loop, was at Rashawn Gary, who both of his sacks this year, he's virtually been untouched, which is exactly how you chalk it up. It's exactly what you look for in the new defense.
I found it interesting that Preston Smith is Preston Smith. You know, he's not changing games at this point in his career. Once a great edge rusher, now he is more of a consistent person there. I could justify this more if LVN was really flashing in a way that would be like, we've been talking about Edgerrin Cooper, like this guy needs to be on the field more, but he's blocked by guys ahead of him with more experience. If we felt that way about Kingsley Enagbare, who at times has shown glimpses, but has also disappeared for vast parts of his young career to this point. I don't know what this does for the Packers other than clear their books a little bit.
Not a lot, right? And obviously, that's a big point. I think he's set to make $18 million or something next year, so obviously it's good to get rid of that. Pittsburgh will take care of that. The Packers were likely to part ways with Preston Smith at the end of this season, regardless, given that big cap hit he would have next year. So at least getting a little compensation for him is better than nothing, I guess would be the point.
The thing that makes it interesting is, like, what even would the dead cap have been to cut him? It looks like $1.6 million.
It wouldn't have been a lot of money, no.
Like, at that point, you're getting something for nothing, but a 7th-round pick that's likely to be in the late 20s.
Pittsburgh's pretty good.
It is close to getting nothing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're essentially, no pun intended, getting really close to Mr. Irrelevant, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, does it do a whole heck of a lot for you? Probably not, right? Like, think of their late 7th-round picks the last couple of years. How many of them can you name? Lou Nichols is one that comes to mind, the running back out of Central Michigan from a couple of years ago.
Kalen King, who can't get activated.
Yeah, that's another situation.
Michael Pratt
was a 7th-round pick this year. So it's not like they've done a lot of great damage. Rasheed Walker was a 7th-round pick. That's a good point. So maybe let's not get it twisted. It's a lot harder to find Rasheed Walkers than it is Michael Pratt's, Lou Nichols, etc., which they have done a lot of here in the last few years, which is fine. But it's better to get something than nothing, and maybe you get a Brock Purdy, not necessarily a quarterback, but maybe you do hit gold in the 7th round. It's just very unlikely. So we will see, but the Packers get something for Preston Smith and don't necessarily get better at the trade deadline. Now, it's not our first years as Packers fans. This is what you've come to expect. Name the biggest trade in Packers history in season. Go. Nobody can do it. In season, I've got nothing. Obviously, the biggest trade in Packers history is Brett Favre from the Falcons. But that was done in the offseason. You can think of some trades they've done on draft day, but nothing that substantial. the best in-season trade. I'm trying to think. Ryan Grant, I think, was an in-season trade. And he ended up being pretty good in their Super Bowl run. But unless I'm missing a big one, I don't think this team has ever made a significant trade in terms of an addition.
I found a article here from Yardbarker.
Okay. And does it power rank them?
No, it's just the biggest for each team.
Okay. Can I guess? Am I going to be able to get it?
No.
I guess. Okay. So we're talking 1960s?
Yes.
Okay. Jim Taylor.
2 years after Bart Starr's retirement, the Packers had dropped off the contender radar, but they were discussing a trade for young talent Archie Manning. That deal did not come to pass, leading head coach and decision-maker Dan Devine to send the Rams a monster haul for veteran QB John Hadl.
Yeah, John Hadl, the biggest trade in Packers history. Proving my point. The Packers don't do this. It's just not something they do. It's not characteristic of them. It is not normal of them. This is the epitome of a team that is draft and develop your young guys. And as much as we all wanted to see the Packers signal, yes, we are all in. We think we can win the Super Bowl despite getting beat up by the Lions on Sunday. And also, we don't want to get left behind because the Chiefs and Bills and Ravens and Lions and Vikings have all made trades in the last week. We need to make a move, so we're going to go add somebody. As much as we wanted that, we knew we weren't getting it. They don't do that. And yes, it's frustrating, to be real honest with you, because a week ago I told you I think Goody has a darn good chance to win Executive of the Year, just like Matt Arnold did for the Brewers. But in order to really solidify that, I thought he had to make a move before the deadline. But it's Brian Gutekunst. It's the Green Bay Packers. It was never going to happen. Now, as you walk away from Sunday, and it's been 72 hours now since the Packers got beat up by Detroit. As you walk away from Sunday, and now you go through the trade deadline, and you're entering the bye week for the Packers, do you feel like this team is where it needs to be to win the NFC? And I get there's a lot of season left. You want to be playing your best ball in December and January. You don't want to be playing your best ball in October and early November. But this week, given the two big stories, you lose to the Lions Sunday, the NFL trade deadline comes and goes, you don't make a move, at least in terms of additions, you shed the salary of Preston Smith essentially, and the Lions get better. They bring in your former friend, and ironically, the other half of the Smith bros, Zadarius Smith. We knew that was never going to happen, right? There was never going to be a reunion in Green Bay for Zadarius Smith. But that's who the Lions bring in. That definitively tells me they are making a concerted effort on elevating this team despite losing Aiden Hutchinson for the remainder of the year. The Packers didn't make a move like that. Do you feel good about where this team's at? I feel good. I don't feel great. You know, I would feel better, or I would feel a heck of a lot better had they won on Sunday or made it a little bit of a closer game. But it was a little disappointing. And now the Lions get better. The AFC's stacked. A lot's got to change in the next, now I got to do math, 8 games in order for me to feel like the Packers are Super Bowl good. They have the expectations of being Super Bowl good, but as it stands right now on November 6th, I don't think this team's Super Bowl good. I think they're playoff good. I think they could win a game in the playoffs. But they're not winning the North at this point. They're not winning the NFC at this point. And maybe that's a year away. But for a team that really needed an extra energy burst, an extra spark plug, they didn't add one. And I don't know how much that will serve them well here in the remainder of the run of the 2024 season, Joshy.
Do you think Brian Gutekunst is telling us he doesn't think this team's Super Bowl good yet?
Well, we did this last year, right? Because when you think back to the trade deadline last year, I don't remember exactly what the Packers' record was. It was 3-5 or 3-6. I believe it was
completely inverse of the current record.
So it was 3-6? Okay. Yes. Yeah, so inverse of the current, right? Yeah, that would make sense. 9 games.
Inverse too big for you?
Go to hell. Yeah, I mean, they did a similar move, right? They got rid of a starter. In terms of Rasul Douglas, they sent him to Buffalo last year. You got a little bit better of a return for that one. But it felt as almost like Goody was admitting, hey, we're not good enough to make the playoffs this year. Which at 3-6, are the Jets playoff good, Joshy?
No.
Yeah, right. I imagine most fan bases don't feel like their team is playoff good when you're 3-6. So that move felt a little bit different. But is this an admission from Brian Gutekunst saying they're not Super Bowl good? No, I don't think so. I don't think that's what he's saying, is signaling or saying at all when he makes a move like this. I think this is more of a, hey, I want to see more of our young guys. I want to see who has it. I want to see who can provide for us. I want to see who can fit well into this defensive scheme. And we need more reps. We need more tape on some of these guys. Preston Smith, it's not like he's been a world beater. It's not like he's leading the league in sacks. It's not like he's entirely changing the complexion of your defense or the scariness of your defense. So, no, I don't think this is a admission of Brian Gutekunst saying, hey, we're not good enough. Get out of here. Like, that's not how I take this. It's an interesting move. It's a surprising move. But I don't think you got a whole hell of a lot worse. I don't think you got any better. I think you by definition, you got worse. But I don't think you got significant. Like, I don't think you're going to lose games because you don't have Preston Smith. Although, tell you what, when he was lined up against Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson last year, he's a darn good corner. You're going to miss that. Desperately use a corner. They didn't trade for one yesterday. I think that was a missed opportunity.
I have a feeling that much like the late Ted Thompson years where the Packers just totally ignored free agency as an option of team building, this iteration has fixed that issue. Mm-hmm. They obviously don't just spend every year like you see a lot of the bad teams do in the NFL, but they have picked and chosen where to go and how to use that money. Obviously, Xavier McKinney is like the prime example of that. You got a young guy who fits exactly what they want to do. You pay him a good amount of money, and he comes in and instantly replaces it. I fear the Packers are in a spot where they are so reliant on the draft and develop that even deals that would make sense or probably be considered rather cheap to the fan base as a whole, those are getting ignored just because Goody wants to continue building through the draft. When you have the youngest team in the NFL 2 years running, they're probably going to be the youngest team next season with all of their picks as well. I don't imagine them getting much older anywhere across the team. Like, there's not many places you see Goody, who seems to have an aversion to the age 30 that you've rarely ever seen in pro sports as a whole. I don't think you have to go out and make the splashiest of plays, but I think operating within the margins is something that the Packers should be looking to do, especially with a team that, like, let's be honest, it's a 6-3 team. It feels worse now than they actually are in the standings and in, like, the general scope of the NFL. Obviously, coming off that big loss to the Lions, you don't feel great. You feel like that's a team you're going to have to beat if you want to reach your final goal.
Yeah, it is.
But I do think there are teams who did a lot of things to get incrementally better, and there are teams that will pay a lot for it, and I don't think that's necessarily the best team building thing, but there has to be trades out there where you go, I don't love the price, but could this be enough to help this team moving forward?
I'm with you. Yeah. Time will tell.
The thing is, what is time going to tell us in Preston Smith? Like,
No, not even that. It's more the first part of what you were saying, right? Like being the youngest team, continuing to get younger. I don't know if that recipe necessarily works, but for now, I don't see a ton of harm in this move. Are they a worse team today than they were at this time yesterday? I think you could say yes, but significantly worse? No.
It depends on where it goes.
Well, because right now, LVN hasn't been impressive.
He's a big downgrade from Preston Smith. Now, he's been losing snaps, and a lot of those were starting to go to other guys. Yeah. I did find it interesting when asked about who would be getting more snaps. LVN wasn't really mentioned by Goody.
Brenton Cox was.
Yes.
So we'll see.
Interesting.
I don't have a lot of tape on him, so I guess I don't really know.
He looked pretty sweet in preseason a couple times. I believe it's 2 now that he's been in Green Bay.
Yeah, I think that is correct. I don't know. I don't know much about him. Find out on Sunday. Not this Sunday. Whoa, bye week. It's literally the topic we're on.
Yeah.
If you look on the YouTube stream, there's a big yellow box around bye week. So we won't see on Sunday. We'll see next Sunday against the Chicago Bears. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll play one word ahead of Week 10 in the NFL. We will talk a little Badgers in there as well, Badgers football. We will also continue our series, ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week. Greg Gard, the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, will join me on the other side. But first, got to tell you about my friends from Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. Cherry brandy in your old fashions, apple brandy for the fall. Maybe it's whiskey season for you like it is me, the 27-time gold medal award-winning single malt whiskey. The bourbon? Ooh, baby, is that good. The rye whiskey, gin, rum, vodkas, whatever you need. Elevate with Door County Distillery, whether that's your tailgate, maybe you're having a little celebration, maybe you're having a holiday gathering. Whatever you do, elevate it with Door County Distillery. DoorCountyDistillery.com is the website to find a huge list of unique cocktail recipes as well as the retailer nearest you. That's DoorCountyDistillery.com. We step aside for 60 when we return. One word ahead of NFL Week 10 and the Wisconsin Badgers football team. And Greg Gard, head coach of the Wisconsin men's basketball team, joins us on the other side. It's Mr. Irrelevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Fall is here, and once again it has me asking the question, where in the world is Door County Distillery today? It brings me to the great Liberty Station off the Beltline in Madison. Let's go into Liberty Station. Always a good time to enjoy a Door County Distillery old-fashioned made with the delicious cherry brandy, which of course is infused with famous cherries from Door County. Whether you're making an old-fashioned, just splashing in some lemon or lime juice, or just mixing it with a soda, nothing better than the cherry brandy from Door County Distillery. You can enjoy it everywhere, whether it's a tailgate, a holiday gathering, or you're sitting out at the patio right here at Liberty Station. Do it right with the Door County Distillery cherry brandy. Check out their website with a huge list of unique cocktail recipes at DoorCountyDistillery.com. That's DoorCountyDistillery.com. Yeah, DoorCountyDistillery.com is the website. Okay, each and every week we play a game called One Word, where Hunter Vaughn, producer Tiny Hands back at the Everlight Solar Studio, comes up with a list of topics, typically in the National Football League. This week we're going to do a couple things on the Badgers as well. Since we haven't talked a ton about Badgers football, and with Greg Gard coming on to talk a little basketball, I figured it was fitting to fit a little Wisconsin football in here as well. So Hunter's got some topics. I will respond with one word. Joshy will hold me accountable throughout. Am I saying words that he has banned? Do I need to be more creative? Or am I just flat out wrong? Sometimes Joshy just throws out his own one word. So it's a little game we play each and every Wednesday here on a Mr. Relevant. It's time to go now. Tiny Hands, go ahead.
All right. The Saints fired Dennis Allen.
Deserved.
The Lions add Zadarius Smith.
I'm going to do a prediction here. I'm just going to say underwhelming. I don't know how much he has left in the tank.
The Commanders add Marshawn Lattimore.
Jealous. I wanted the Packers in on him.
Dak Prescott out multiple weeks with a hamstring injury.
Sorry.
The Kansas City Chiefs stay undefeated.
3-peat?
Geno Smith leads the league in passing yards with 2,560.
Entertaining?
ESPN's Jeremy Fowler picked the Vikings trade for tackle Cam Robinson as the most impactful trade at the deadline.
Yeah. Incorrect.
Christian McCaffrey is expected to play on Sunday for the 49ers.
Vengeance.
And then on to the Badgers. Wisconsin loses 42-10 at Iowa.
Despicable.
Braden Locke has thrown an INT in 7 straight starts.
Love-esque? No. Bench would be probably my word.
Yeah. That's all I've got, and it's going to be tough to bench Braden Locke going up against the number 1 team in the country.
Right.
In
yeah.
a few days.
I don't think that is I don't think that is a situation in which, well, not a few days, next week.
Oh, yeah.
Badgers and Packers both on bye this week. But I knew what you meant. Yeah, the thing with Braden Locke is He hasn't been great for the Badgers. That's very clear. He had a couple of fun moments. They did the fun Locktober branding around him, and then it kind of just all fell flat on his face as we approached the end of the month. Saturday's game against Iowa was, do I go as far as to say unacceptable? You can lose to Iowa. That's fine. Allowing 42 points against Iowa, who doesn't score 42 points ever? Like, that's the number of their over-under for a game total a lot of the times. For them to score 42 points is absurd. So, but obviously that doesn't all fall on Braden Locke, but he wasn't good. You can't bench him. As much as I want to see maybe what the future looks like with Maver Matoyer, the appeal to Braden Locke is he has spent the most time in the system. Right, you try to do these last 2 years. You bring in Tanner Mordecai last year from SMU. You bring in Tyler Van Dyke this year from Miami for their final collegiate seasons. And because they are veteran quarterbacks in college football, you expect them to kind of just pick up because they're veterans, right? They've seen a lot of things. They can come into a system and make an impact, and it just hasn't worked out that way. So I shrug a little bit, but maybe Matoyer, maybe he's the future. Who knows? Anyway. All right. Wednesday night hoops action. We've got a lot of NBA games going on tonight. You can get in on a little action on there as well. I think I'm gonna split between the two of them on Underdog and UnderdogFantasy.com. Use promo code Good Karma at sign up. GOODKARMA. Good Karma on Underdog app or UnderdogFantasy.com, free to download on your phone. When you sign up on Underdog, use promo code Good Karma. You can get up to $1,000 deposit match. You put in $500, you get $500 extra bucks. You put in $100, you get $100 extra bucks to play with on Underdog. You also get a free pick, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Turn $1 into $1,000 on the Underdog Fantasy Pick'em game just by picking higher or lower on players' stat projections. You look at three-pointers made, points, rebounds, assists. PRA is what we call that in the biz. Higher or lower. You can pick anywhere between 2 to 8 projections in your Pick'em entry. If you go all the way up to 8, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. I do have a little I think it's a 5-pick entry today. I'm just throwing caution to the wind tonight just to see if I can turn $6 into 91. Special free pick in Underdog today on an NBA entry. You can make any pick 0 on the higher or lower. So I took Tim Hardaway Jr. of the Pistons. I took his points down to 0.0, and I took higher there. Took Derek White of the Celtics, higher 3.5 first quarter points. Steph Curry, higher 3.5 3-pointers made. James Harden, higher 21.5 points tonight. And Kyle Lowry against the Clippers at 9 o'clock tonight, higher 5.5 points on the Underdog app, UnderdogFantasy.com. All right, ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week. I caught up with each of the 4 Division I men's basketball coaches in the state as we tip off college hoops in the state of Wisconsin. And today, we go to Madison, year 10 for Greg Gard, coming off of a disappointing exit in the NCAA tournament last year. A tumultuous offseason in the transfer portal, losing 8 guys in the transfer portal. Also lost Tyler Wall, who was out of eligibility. The Wisconsin Badgers did, only returning 2 starters and a key freshman from a year ago, John Blackwell. So had to do some work in the portal, had to do some work on high school recruits. But the Badgers do have a roster. They win their opener on Monday night. It was dicey in the first half. They were losing at halftime to Holy Cross, but able to come away with a 20-plus point win on Monday against Holy Cross. Here is the head coach of the program on ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week, Greg Gard.
Coaches Week on ESPN Wisconsin rolls on live. Alex Strouf hanging out now with Wisconsin men's basketball head coach Greg Gard joining me, entering his 10th season, 9th full season as the Wisconsin head coach. Greg, first off, appreciate the time, and imagine, in the world of college athletics we live in, I don't know how much sleep you got this offseason, but you ready to go? You amped up for season number 10?
Yeah, we are, definitely. Offseason did not start quite as fast. I think with the portal and everything going on in college basketball, the season at the end last year after we got knocked out went on another 60 days with retooling the roster, so to speak, for this year. But I really like this group. I think we're vastly undervalued on the open market, and that's just fine. Our best teams sometimes have laid in the weeds. But I like how this group has come together. A lot of different pieces, a lot of versatility, a lot of size, a lot of depth. So I'm excited to see where we can take this.
I love that you say that. Some of our best groups have laid in the weeds, right? Do you like kind of being that underdog, somebody that maybe not all eyes on you? Is that the way you like your?
No,
program?
I think I've watched that for the better part of 25 years here. Just I'm not sure we get, and this is probably nobody's fault, but I'm not sure we get the same attention and spotlight put on us as other programs across the country, but at the same time have had the same or more success. So I'm fine with it. We have a saying with our group, chatter don't matter. So we just, we know we got to go to work every day, and it's really a results-oriented profession and business. So we're excited for November 4th to get here when we can, continue to improve and show everybody what we got.
How do you evolve with the game that is fastly evolving, right? You just mentioned, it probably took 60 to 75 days to retool this roster. You had 8 guys last year enter the portal, Greg. And obviously you bring in some really strong freshmen, led by Freetag. You bring in 3 really good transfers. But how do you evolve as a head coach? I mean, you've been doing this a long time. As this game continues to evolve, how do you do it?
Yeah, I think, the benefit I have is I've had the experience of the years of yesterday, or the ways of yesterday, but yet I'm young enough and have surrounded myself with people on my staff. And quite frankly, I've shifted the kind of the makeup of my staff to accommodate this, that I'm able to adapt and adjust and not get, I don't want to say callous, but not stay negative about it and throw your arms up in the air and go, what the hell? And be proactive and instead of reactive and staying ahead or at least up with how things have changed. So my staff has done an awesome job. I think the combination of all guys that have come from a variety of different places, along with the Joe Krabinoff and Strouf Shambliss, who have been with me for a few years now. It's a good combination to be able to adapt and adjust to today's new landscape.
Do you mind elaborating? What do you mean by you've kind of shifted your staff to accommodate the portal and all the intricacies? Do you have certain guys maybe looking at the portal more or doing more internal?
It's not just the portal, Alex. It's just this whole world of roster transformation and knowing that you're most likely. I look at we've become pro sports. Yeah. So when was the last 2-year back-to-back combination? Here's what I'll ask you, and you may know the answer to this better than what I've gotten from other people I've asked this to. When's the last 2 years in a row that the Packers have had the same 2 deep on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball?
I would guess, right? Yeah, I guess long before you and I were born would probably.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. So we have to understand and embrace and realize we're in a different time, and there's going to be some transient nature to your roster, and having a mindset and an approach to be able to say, okay, here we go. Here's our next options. Here's where we're going to plug and replace. And it's different than the NBA or Major League Baseball. NFL, you don't have everybody being a free agent every year. In college athletics, everybody is right now until we get some sort of structure around this. So you have to be able to roll with that and embrace that. And I think between the staff combinations, having pro basketball experience, a variety of different levels that they've been at, player development is a piece I've added with Greg Stevens. I'm bringing him from the Spurs. So it's been able to adapt and adjust to, stay in step with where we're at. And obviously the NIL world, you have to stay competitive in that. And that's been a new facet that's added to our plate and having guys on the staff that understand the importance of that and embrace it and run to it instead of run from it.
That's so good, dude. Appreciate the insight on that. Let's talk about a couple of your returners. Let's start with Max Klesmit, because I think, last season he had so many great moments for you guys, especially I think it started in non-conference play, that Marquette game at the Kohl Center. And then you just saw it evolve into conference play, evolve into the Big Ten tournament. I imagine you're really excited for both his leadership role off the court and on the court here this year for Kles.
Yeah, he's taken it to another level. I mean, he's become an elite shooter, quick trigger guy. He's going to get a lot of looks. But I think the one thing I've watched just evolve over his 3 years has gone from, do I fit in? How do I fit in? Do I have a voice? When do I use my voice? To now he's commanding that locker room and he's commanding those huddles. So that's a maturation and a comfort you'd like to see happen with guys. And he's definitely taken those steps. But he's tough as nails. He's a lot like guys in that role of the past, the Davisons, the Showalters, the Gossers, that have helped us win a lot of games. But Max is playing right now at a pretty high level, and like I said, he shoots it really, really well. He's put a lot of time into it. So I'm excited for him to have an awesome senior year.
How about a sophomore jump for backcourt? John Blackwell.
Yeah, he's taking a big
You knew where
jump.
I was going.
Yeah, he has. I mean, I maybe mistakenly I've compared him publicly to Johnny Davis in terms of how he's evolved, and he's different than Johnny. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's going to be a lottery pick and all that, but just his mindset. I watched Johnny come back in year 2 and have a mindset of I belong and I'm the best player on this floor and nobody's going to stop me. John has that same approach, and I really watched that kind of evolve this summer. And a lot of times when freshmen get that year under their belt, so to speak, and they become sophomores, you see that, and you see a mindset shift and a growth of trying to survive to thriving. And John has really, I think, taken that and the experience that he got last year. I'm the fool that didn't play him more than 22 minutes a game. I should have played him 30, probably would have won more games, but he just impacts winning in a lot of ways. And he's a great kid, humble, really too soft-spoken for me yet. I need him to have more of a voice, but man, he knows how to score, and he's a great team player.
I know the last couple of years you've gotten a lot of questions about playing Nolan Winter and Steven Crowell at the same time. It seems like Winter, at least according to the roster, put on 15 pounds this offseason. Is that something you're looking to do in the front court with those two guys?
Yeah, I think the biggest drawback or what held us back from that a lot last year was Nolan couldn't guard fours. And I think now he really wasn't physical enough to guard fives. So we played him there some, but it was we were biding time, so to speak, just because of his not being ready for the physicality. I think the strength component, the weight component has helped both those positions. It's helped his mobility at the four and his ability to stay with mobile fours and switch ball screens and those things. And then he's more physical and more aggressive. And quite frankly, the confidence that he'll get from playing at the four will help him at the five, just with a mindset shift like we talked about with Blackwell. But man, he's 7 feet and can move, block shots, shoots it really well, really skilled for that size. He's still a pup. You can tell just he has some baby giraffe moments, but he's going to be a really good player. It may happen in November. It may happen in February. It may not happen until 2026. I don't know. But I like where he's going. He's got the right approach. His dad was a beast at Minnesota back in the 90s for them, for the Gophers. But he's built different than what Trevor was and how Trevor played. But I keep encouraging him to get some of his dad's nastiness, because his dad didn't take a back seat when it came to physicality. So I like, Nolan's I'm excited to see where he can go, and there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be some bumps in the road for him. He's going to get his butt kicked a few times, but I like how he keeps jumping back up and sticking his face back in it.
I love your realism, man. Baby giraffe. I'm going to have a hard time watching him and not think, oh yeah, that's the baby giraffe moment Gardo was referring to there. That's awesome. What's the ideal point guard for Greg Gard? I mean, obviously you've had some really good ones during your time in Wisconsin, and obviously lose a great one in Chucky Hepburn to the portal. What do you look for in that position?
Leadership. And ability. I don't put a number of points they have to score. You better take care of the ball or you won't be on the floor long. And that really doesn't matter what position you're at. Not that you have to be perfect, but I always say be responsible. When the ball's in your hands, the keys to the program are in your hands. So be responsible with it. And the guys I've had there, I think the older guys, Kamari McGee has done a really good job of embracing that and understanding that, and his growth just has been fun to watch. I think the other newcomers, Free Tag and Cam Hunter, are learning how important taking care of the ball is, and just how it impacts winning and the bottom line of this. So those are probably the two most important, really the leadership and how can you command. I always say, and that's why I have such an affection for football players and specifically quarterbacks. If you can command a huddle of 10, you'll have no problem with 4 on the floor. So just that command of the floor. And I've had really good ones from all the way back to Koenig was one of my first ones when I took over. Dimitri Trice was a football quarterback. Brad Davison was a football quarterback. Just guys that have command and aren't afraid to lead.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't even think of the correlations as football quarterbacks. That's fascinating. Greg, this new look Big Ten is fascinating to me. But clearly, through the 10 minutes we've been talking, you don't give a damn about the changes, right? You want to embrace the change. 18-10 though, that's a unique one. How do you prepare for that? Because I know even since when you were an assistant with Bo, kind of the goal was always top 4 in the Big Ten. Does that change as the conference grows?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the unique part of this, Alex, is, when I started with Bo, and compared to now, the conference almost doubled in size. There was 11. There was 11, where that little Big Ten logo with 11 in the middle actually was relevant. Now it's Big Ten times 2. So no, the goals are still the same. You still want to win the Big Ten championship. I mean, being in the top 4 was never the goal. The goal was winning the Big Ten championship. So if you weren't at the top at the end, then you didn't reach your goal. So no, the goals don't change. I mean, I think it's great for our league. I think it's great for obviously for us. We're, from a travel standpoint, everybody gets wrapped up in the travel. Hey, it's the same for everybody. Really, it's not the same for everybody. We're in a really good position being in the Midwest. So it's going to be really competitive. I can't name you 5 players on anybody else's roster, even the returning Big Ten teams, because there's been so much movement at every school. Probably ourselves, Purdue, Michigan State, maybe Northwest have the most returning that actually wore a uniform for that school last year. But everybody else, between new schools to the league and even in those new schools, there's been a lot of musical chairs going on in terms of rosters. So we'll approach it when we get to December 3rd, and Michigan's the first Big Ten game. We'll learn all about Michigan, and we'll knock them out, 20 games or one at a time through 20 games. And nobody's going to have it any harder or any easier than anybody else. I'm almost a proponent, Alex, I think with where college athletics, specifically at the Power 5 level, is going, we need to just play 34 conference games. Go play. There's 18 of us play, 17 of them twice. There's 34. And I know coaches get into, I need to have, some build-up games. Ask Andy Reid where his easy game is, or Matt LaFleur. Ask him which one of those 17 are easy. There aren't any. So I think when we're really looking at what we're trying to accomplish from a financial standpoint and a bottom line with revenue sharing and everything, why not tee up 34 of them and play? The Lakers don't play the Sioux Falls Skyforce.
No, they do not.
So I see that's where we're going. When we get there, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised in 5 years plus or minus we're in that type of format. Yeah,
that's a fascinating idea. I wouldn't doubt it, right? I mean, the way everything is evolving, I could certainly see that being the case. I'm just curious where my mind goes, right? Is what happens to those mid majors that want that national spotlight, right? But
what's happening to them now? I mean, as all this goes on with as the rev share kicks into place here over the next year, with the CFP and everything that's going on with that, I don't think we need to hide or pretend we're something that we're not. Where this is going and where we're trending. Let's call it what it is, and let's approach it like it is, and be real about it.
Couple more for you, Greg. Really appreciate the time. Let's talk about a couple of guys you're really close to, and I want to start with a well-respected youngish coach at a well-respected university like Virginia. He steps away last week, right. Kind of citing everything that's going on. What goes through your mind when you see that with Tony Bennett?
I'm empathetic towards it. I understand it, but I'll be honest with you, I don't like it, and I don't like it for a variety of reasons. One, it's not good for college basketball to have somebody of that quality step away. Not only just his record as a coach, but who he is as a person, how he can impact young people's lives. It's not good. Secondly, I think having him at the forefront and on the front lines of helping shift this and get it to he mentioned we're not in a good place. True. But I think we're we're going to get to a better place. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're working towards it. But having him in the front line and not having him around as a voice in that regard and impacting young people every day is not good for our game. So like I said, for a variety of reasons, I understand it. I get it. Hey, all of our families have sacrificed something. I don't care if you're coaching at Virginia or Wisconsin or, Rufus King High School. Your family is going to pay a price for what you have to commit to be good at your profession. So we all go through that. But I understand it. I just, I don't like it because it's not good for our profession, and it's not good in the short term and in the long term.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think that's a really good answer. But I mean, you see it around all sports, right? Like the Packers defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, right? He leaves the head coaching job at Boston College, given everything going on. So it's just,
yeah. And I've had a lot of pro coaches tell me they'll never go or never go back to college. And that doesn't matter the sport, and that's not basketball specific. I've had pro football coaches tell me the same thing. And, it's just, we have to get to a better spot. I think we understand, we have identified the issues, and I'm all for players making money and getting, but we don't have any, like any other pro league we talked about, whether it's collective bargaining, contracts, free agency, we have to have a structure and a governing body around it to keep us all, to keep the parity, quite frankly, and to keep us all somewhat on a level playing field. It'll never be completely equal, but that's why the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA work, because there's structures and you have to follow the rules of everything that goes on within it. So we'll get there. We're not there yet, but we'll get there.
We need more people with the mindset of Greg Gard, right? Like you're embracing it, which is really awesome to hear. Let's talk something a little bit more positive, though. Obviously, your longtime mentor and friend, Bo Ryan, going into the the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame a couple weeks ago. How did Greg Gard celebrate?
I was out there with him. So I actually took a group of donors out to the Rutgers football game. And then we did a little NIL fundraising. That's part of one of the caps you wear now. We did some of that over the weekend, and then we flew to Springfield on Sunday afternoon and got a chance to be there with him. It was awesome. Hall of Fame did a great job. I think they wore him out over the weekend with all the events and appearances he had to make. But nobody loves the public spotlight more than Bo Ryan. So he enjoyed it. I've talked to him a time or two since he's gotten back. I had to leave right after he got inducted to fly back. But I'm happy for him. It's a long time coming. I got a front row seat for a vast majority of that career as a head coach. And he stayed true to who he was. Or who he is. I mean, he didn't, when the waters got rough, I always said that was when he really anchored to, he didn't change. He just said, we have to get better at what we're doing. And obviously to be able to do it for that length of time at a variety of schools and have that sustained success is really, you probably aren't going to see a lot of that anymore, just because we are much more nomadic than maybe what we, and quite frankly, schools are less patient to let somebody stay that long. But for him to do it Division III in Milwaukee, then in mid-major, and then had here in Madison has been a huge tribute. And he was the first one to thank everybody else, from the 3 ADs that hired him to Bill Cofield, who brought him to Madison back in the 70s, to his players, his assistant coaches, the student managers. I mean, he was very gracious with his time and his words, and he stayed on track, which is amazing. That's the first time. I've only seen somebody put a clock on him twice, and the first time didn't work when we were in Platteville one year at summer camp. He is known for long, extensive closing ceremony speeches, and one of our assistant managers, equipment managers, tried to put a clock on him, and he dared him, and the guy had to run to the scoreboard to shut it off before the horn went off. But I joked with Bo. I said, hey, this is the first time you've stayed on track, and he did an awesome job staying on the teleprompter and staying right on track, and really hit all the right points and the right people.
Yeah, it's a Hall of Fame career without a doubt. So super well deserved for him. Last thing for you, I'm asking all you coaches. You mentioned your team motto: chatter don't matter. What does that mean to Greg Gard?
just the outside noise. I mean, we see it positively or negatively every single year. We always have. I think you see a uptick in it just because of the emergence of social media. And quite frankly, Sam Decker was the first player I watched get affected by social media in a negative way when he was a player for us back, 10, 12 years ago. And I've just tried to always, I haven't banned our players from social media. I've warned them of the dangers. And there's some positives of it, but I think there's so many keyboard coaches and keyboard warriors that live in ambiguity or absent, so to speak, without a name or a face attached to it, that take shots at these guys. And they gotta understand they have to regulate that and moderate that. And I try to help them with it. And it's not easy, because I have my own son on the team, and anytime they're 18 to 23 years old, they're attached to these at the hip. So just helping them with that, I think, is the big thing. And like I said, it really doesn't matter what the outside world thinks. It's about what we do every day and what we can control. And it's you're trying to teach life lessons through a game, and this is a quirky way of trying to teach a life lesson. Just, hey, you're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, you're going to have bad days when your spouse is ticked off at you, your kids don't do what you want them to do, or something bad happens to a family member. You have to keep moving forward and surround yourself with good people and keep working.
I could do this for another half an hour, but I know you're busy as we get ready to tip off the college basketball season. Greg Gard on Coaches Week here on ESPN Wisconsin. Greg, appreciate the time, my friend, and good luck this season.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Alex. Talk to you soon.
Greg Gard, the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, here on ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week and Mr. Irrelevant. Appreciate Greg's time and transparency on everything going on, right? Like I mentioned it in there, but for a guy that could probably complain and be and moan about all the changes and turnover in college basketball, he really didn't, right? He embraces the change. He's ready to take him face on. It's a hard thing to do, man. It's a weird era we're in, but we will see as the Badgers try to claw back into the NCAA tournament picture. Not the cleanest opening night for them against Holy Cross, but it's only one game, and a win is a win. Joshy?
It's just extremely refreshing to hear someone not complain about NIL, transfer portal, all of that. It's just become what everyone does, and it's so wildly applauded. You mentioned Tony Bennett there.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people like, yeah, this is just the reality now. And it's like, well, get over it.
Correct. And Greg clearly has, which
Right.
I appreciated. And again, I feel like he's probably one of the few people in the country that could very fairly go, yeah, this sucks.
Yeah.
He lost his whole roster practically. But no, he rebuilt it. We talked about it in there, which I thought was really insightful on, kind of the way his coaching staff is constructed now. He's got people that are focusing on the portal all year because naturally you're going to lose some guys. And, it's very different than the conversation we had on Monday with Shaka Smart. And that's one of the few teams in the country that lost nobody to the transfer portal. So kind of the opposite worlds here between Wisconsin and Marquette and what they went through this offseason. But good stuff regardless there from the head coach, Greg Gard, here on ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week. You missed any of the interview, you can find it on YouTube, ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee. You can find it in the podcast feed. We'll have all of those full-length interviews posted in the podcast feed as well for you to check out. So don't miss out on that here throughout the week. But good way to tip off the college hoop season. Both of our football teams in the state on bye. Figured it's a good time to check in on all these programs. So thanks again to Greg Gard for taking the time and talking a little Badgers. All right, you learn something new every day. We learn something new today. It's time now to play a little What We Learned. I'm going to throw it up this week, man. I don't have much today. I do have one small thing that we can get to if nobody else has come on with some fire. Josh is not even looking at a microphone, so there's no way he's going to go. Hunter, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw the Madison Mallards tweeted this. I've got it up on the screen now, but I'll read the tweet for those listening back. The Madison Mallards tweeted, breaking news, the Madison Mallards are doing, quote, everything we can to sign Juan Soto for 2025. The deal is expected to include a lifetime of wieners. First reported by, and then they added at Jeff Passan.
So we do need to highlight the use of the word wieners for a moment, because at Madison
Great
Mallards
use.
games in the Northwoods League, yes, correct, I'm with you. But for somebody that's never been to a Mallards game, they may not understand why they didn't just say hot dogs. So anytime a foul ball is hit at Warner Park, which I used to live right next to, which is where the Mallards play, anytime a foul ball is hit, if you get the ball and you return it, you get a free hot dog. So the public address announcer in Warner Park, just in many different ways, says wiener or wiener anytime a foul ball is hit. Entertaining part of Mallards games. The Mallards are very good at social media, Hunter.
Yes.
This was a great tweet.
Yeah, one of the better tweets that I've seen, especially over the last couple of days here. So had to highlight that.
Yeah, what I learned is I'm not getting political, I promise, but we are all in lockstep on annoyance over political commercials. And I've got to give credit to the many numerous media outlets in the state that posted yesterday on social media, hey, our last political commercial is airing at X time. It's a heady play by them. I heard our friends on WTMJ, Vince Vitrano, Eric Bilstead, who were on the air last night. They played the last political commercial that aired during their election coverage last night. And then they played Hallelujah, which was very funny. So we're all in lockstep on that. At least we can all agree on one thing, right, Joshy?
Yeah, do something for me on your phone when you get a chance. Is go look through the amount of spam or potential spam you've gotten and the amount of actual phone calls you've made to humans or received from humans.
All right, well, let's just go through the last 2 days. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yesterday. Monday, 1, 2, 3. Just 3 on Monday. Over the weekend, Saturday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on Saturday. 6 on Saturday. I had a lot of phone calls on Saturday. Yeah, so glad that's over.
Yeah.
Glad that's over. And here we are on the other side. So anyway, well, appreciate you stepping away from real life for an hour with us today. Thanks again to Greg Gard for joining us on Coaches Week. Thanks to Joshy for actually showing up to work today. Thanks to Hunter for the brilliant job he always does. And thanks to you for hanging out with us. We're back with you on Friday previewing the football weekend. No Packers, no Badgers. We'll continue to, talk mid-season for the Packers. Where are they at in terms of our expectations? We'll dive into that a little bit more on Friday. Doug Gottlieb will join us Friday, the new head coach at Green Bay, making the rounds for his sweaty shirt on opening night. He will be our guest Friday to wrap up ESPN Wisconsin Coaches Week. You can also find the Bart Lundy interview on YouTube from Milwaukee. He was awesome, and in the podcast feed as well. We will talk to you Friday beginning at 12:30 Central on YouTube and Facebook and wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand. Looking forward to it as we approach the halfway point of the week. It's Mr. Irrelevant, presented by Door County Distillery. I'm Alex Strouf. We'll talk to you Friday. Peace.